Hey guys, welcome back to Cheryl's Excel tutorials. Today we'll be looking at how to use the VLOOKUP and IFERROR function on Excel, which can be very useful when analysing data or when trying to extract aspects of it. The VLOOKUP function allows you to find data within the same row of a lookup value that you specify. In other words, based on the lookup value as a point of reference, the function can retrieve data from another column. To demonstrate how VLOOKUP works, we have this table on the left which details mock crime statistics. We have a list of postcodes and the counts of break-ins, robberies, and damage to property. I've made another table on the right with the specific postcodes I'd like to retrieve data on. And as you can see, I'm interested in the count of robberies for each of these postcodes, which the VLOOKUP function will help me find. So let's get started. To bring up the function, simply type equals, then VLOOKUP into the cell, and click on the drop-down box that appears. As you can see, there are 4 components in the VLOOKUP function. Firstly, we have the lookup value. For this, you need to highlight the cell that you'd like to retrieve data on. In this case, I'm clicking on the postcode 4072, which is cell F2, then press the comma button to move on to the next component. The second component is table array, which is essentially the range of cells where Excel will retrieve your data. I'm highlighting the entire table here by dragging my mouse. If you have an extensive table with hundreds of rows or columns, a really great shortcut is to highlight the top rows, then Control-Shift down, which takes you down to the very last row. I also highly recommend locking the table, otherwise it might shift, which can lead to inaccurate results. To do this, highlight the cells whilst pressing down on Control and the number 4 if you're on the Mac, or F4 if you're on a Windows computer. As you can see, $ appear in the formula, indicating that the range of cells is now locked. Now, the third component we need to fill in is column index number. This lets the function know which column we're interested in retrieving data from. As you can see in the table on the left, column 1 contains the postcodes, column 2 details the number of break-ins, column 3 lists the number of robberies, and column 4 has the number of damages to property. So in the formula, I'm going to type in the number 3 because we're interested in the number of robberies. For this part, it's really important to ensure that the lookup column, which is the postcode number in this case, is the furthermost left in the original data set, otherwise the function won't work. This is because VLOOKUP always searches to the right of the lookup value, so if this isn't the case for you, I strongly suggest restructuring your table. The final part of the function is range lookup. This can either be true or false. True looks up a value that is closest or approximate to what you've specified. You often use true when looking up a value that is not specifically displayed in the dataset, but within a range or interval, such as age or tax brackets. On the other hand, false retrieves data based on an exact match. For this example, we'll type in false because we want an exact match. Then I'm going to press enter to confirm the function. As you can see, the VLOOKUP has returned that there were 7 robberies recorded for the postcode 4072. If we compare this to the original table, we can verify that this is true. Now I'm going to move back to the table on the right and I'm going to apply the rest of the VLOOKUP function to the rest of the column. I'm going to simply double click on the right hand bottom corner of the cell. Now, as you may have noticed, we actually have postcodes in this list that weren't included in the original table. And you can see that this function has returned a not applicable error to indicate that it couldn't find a match for it. A really cool Excel trick to get rid of this is to actually input an IFERROR function that allows you to return a specified value if an error appears. In this case, the not applicable error. To input this function, simply type in the equals IFERROR function in front of the VLOOKUP function without deleting it. As you can see, the function has 2 components, value and value if error. For value, we're inputting the original VLOOKUP function, so simply copy and paste this if it isn't in the cell already, or just ensure that it is in the section of the IFERROR function. As for the value if error, this is what we want Excel to return if it evaluates an error. In our case, the postcodes that returned an error weren't in the list, so we'll type in data unavailable between inverted commas. Now, you need to make sure that you always use inverted commas, otherwise the function won't work. So we'll apply this to the rest of the cells, and as you can see now, instead of the error coming up for the postcodes 4100 and 4215, Excel now states that data is unavailable for these postcodes. And that's it, guys, a brief tutorial on how to use the VLOOKUP and IFERROR function on Excel. Thanks for tuning in, good luck, and I'll catch you in the next tutorial.